When we talk about agency, we're often referring to a feeling of control. When we move, our actions can affect the environment and objects around us. But although agency has been studied in adults, where agency is formed or developed is still pretty unknown. Does it come from a disconnected mind, our DNA, or is it developed over time after birth? Or maybe agency isn't developed but emerges through behaviour. That is what this study looked to explore. A sense of agency could be understood when there is a change in the environment that can be traced back to somebody's voluntary movement, and no other plausible force could have caused that change. As Kelso mentioned before, there is lots of research on what agency is and how it relates to adult behaviour, but there is a lack of research discussing how a sense of agency emerges in the first place. Understanding our actions make a difference is critical for any organism to survive. We need to know that what we're doing makes a difference. And understanding how agency emerges may help us understand disorders, where there is a disruption in the sense of agency. There was previous research in mobile conjuncture reinforcement, MCR. Infants lay on their back in a crib looking up at a mobile. A mobile is made from colourful wooden figures which moves around and sort of spins. There are 3 phases to this experiment. The frequency of infant kicking is what is measured. The first phase is a baseline where the infant watches the stationary mobile. It's not going anywhere. Then in phase 2, the infant's ankle is tethered to the mobile by a silk cord. The more the infant moves, the more the mobile moves. Then in phase 3, the infant, once again, is just staring at a stationary mobile. During phase 1, there was about 10 kicks a minute, but in phase 2, the rate increased by a factor of 3 to 4. That's pretty big. Then in phase 3, the rate returned back to 10 kicks a minute, like in phase 1. That suggests the infants were moving more, potentially because they understood the more they kick, the more the mobile moves. But they might have been moving because of the increased arousal from the mobile moving more, not necessarily agency. So there was a control group. An experimenter moved the wooden figures in phase 2 instead of the infants being tethered to it. Half of the control group could see the mobile moving from the experimenter, the other half could see it, but also had a silk cord attached to their ankle, but it didn't actually move the mobile. And the results found phase 2 had no increased kick rate in the control group, unlike the experimenter group. This confirms the movement in the experimental group in phase 2 wasn't due to arousal from movement, but something else, hinting at the emergence of agency. This replication research had 16 2 to 3 month old infants doing a very similar experiment. Baseline 1 was the same as phase 1, infant watching the mobile. Baseline 2 was the control group phase 2, experimenter moving the mobile. Coupled was the experimental group phase 2, the infant tethered to the mobile. Then decoupled was like phase 3, infant watching again a stationary mobile. As you can see in the table, they saw the same results. More kicks when the infant was tethered in the coupled phase. Something interesting to note though is that in baseline 2, where the mobile was moved by the experimenter, they had less kicks than in baseline 1, where the infant was just looking at a stationary mobile. That could have been due to surprise or interest, but we can't be sure. What we can be pretty sure about is that the increased rate in the coupled phase was from infants understanding the relationship between their movement and the mobile spinning. The reason this is so interesting is that instead of goal-directedness, mental planning, or a comparison of goals and outcomes, often used to explain adult agency, this supports the idea agency emerges from spontaneous movement, where coordination of an organism and environment are coupled. A sense of agency potentially emerging in the infants while interacting with the mobile. This could allow for further analysis into how and when a sense of agency emerges, which could help those with disorders where there is a disruption in the sense of agency, but also help us look at how organisms act in relation to goal-directed behaviours. not a separated motor program given to the body to follow, but something else. Many views of perception science use the idea of a central executive guiding or giving commands to the body to act. But there are lots of issues with this idea, as I discuss in this video over here.